Try to adjust this a little better, so let's see how that works. All right. Good morning, everyone. Today is the 3rd of August, 3rd of September 2020. I wish it were still August for a lot of reasons, which I won't divulge. I'm Roy Potter. Welcome as you come in. I'm a little more relaxed this morning, so we might take a little more time. We'll see. You know, the other night when I did that post about Trump and him still pushing things and not rescinding the national emergency, I was really upset. And you know, I probably ought to turn off the chat. I probably really ought to because, you know, I can't really monitor it all anyway. I'm not, I don't do this like Monograph does. That's even he misses a lot. Good morning, Star. Good morning, everyone. And you know, I appreciate like Liza Jean taking care of things yesterday for me, or that night with the problems that we were encountering. That was really good, and I appreciate it. But at any rate, I did lose my temper, and that happens quite often when I see stupid people saying stupid things, and more than anything else, making false accusations. And I realize what the trolls are, but I just, I probably just don't need to pay attention to them. But anyway, I did lose my temper, and I wasn't kidding when I said, you know, if I meet somebody like that on the street and they pull out, they're going to have a real problem on their hands. I'm not talking tough. Let me tell you a little story that happened. So it was right as I was just preparing to get out of the army, putting in my paperwork actually to get out of it, and my high school where I graduated from, of course, was having a reunion that year, and so Carol, my wife, and I drove completely all the way across country to go to the reunion, and so my my reputation obviously preceded me. As a matter of fact, when I got there, they had a meeting prior to the reunion actually itself with the people that were actually putting it on, the class presidents and the class officers who were actually putting it on. And when I went they invited me to that meeting, even though I hadn't been around to plan it anyway. And when I came in, they had a copy, and I've showed it on this channel before. They had a copy of People magazine with me on the front cover. And I do, that, yeah, this is going to be the major subject of conversation at the reunion. And I was right. I definitely had that. Um, a celebrity you don't really want, but you just deal with it. And Carol was real good at defending me if I ever needed it, which was really, really good. But anyway, to make a long story short, which I've already made a long story. So the reunion, they had alcohol there, of course, and they had a band, and they had the slideshow, actually it was a PowerPoint show, and all of that. And after people loosened up a little bit, I had some old girlfriends, coming up to me, Carol, of course, coming into the family the way she did, she wasn't too terribly jealous, but by this time I was pretty much just hers. And so she was taken aback a little bit about it. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm leading up to what happened. Okay, so I'm in line. They decide to take a class picture. Now, my class had nearly 1,000 people in it. My senior class, and there weren't that many at the reunion. There were probably 300, I'm guessing, something like that. So they put us up on the stage, as many as they could get us up there and down in the front. I mean, it was a real crowd. And I had one of the ladies who, during my time in high school, I was on the gymnastics team, and she was my partner on several floor exercise routines. And so I won't say her name, I remember it to this day. She came over and she left her husband on the other side of the line and came and stood right behind me and grabbed my arm, and she goes, "Oh, I want a divorce." Oh, man. Oh, well. I could tell Carol wasn't happy. But worse, I was embarrassed because of the situation. Well, but she was good, but she had been drinking a little bit. So anyway, after the picture was taken and she hung on to me a little bit and I finally was able to slip away, uh, I had two guys come up to me. One who was the captain of the soccer team, because I was also on the soccer team in high school. The captain of the soccer team, and then a guy who played in my band. He played the saxophone for our band. And I won't, of course, mention their names, but they came up to me. And the funny thing is the class officer, not the president, but one of the class officers that had been putting this thing on, she was watching what was happening because she knew. I guess she had heard some rumblings about it. And these two guys came up to me and they wanted to fight. They were upset about the fact that my magazine was sitting at the entrance to the reunion, and that I had been the subject of the conversation primarily during this entire thing and leading up to it. And more than anything else, that I had had the company of so many gorgeous women, including Carol, who was with me at the time. Apparently, both of these guys had either lost their wives by this point or hadn't. I don't know I don't know what happened in their relationships. I didn't get into that. But they came up to me, like I said, and they wanted to fight. And this lady, who's the class officer, she's watching probably about 20 feet away, and she's calling some other guys over who had been friends of mine, 3 or 4 of them, because she knew that they would back me up. And Carol was sitting over at a table talking to an old buddy of mine. I don't even know if she realized what was going on. But these guys came up and they started saying, we're going to kick your ass, and we think that you're this and that, and throwing out all these accusations and presenting themselves in a threatening manner. And they had been drinking. I had not. I had not been drinking at all, as a matter of fact. I didn't want to embarrass myself. And that was actually before I started drinking, actually. It wasn't until after 9/11 that I started to imbibe a little bit. But at any rate, so these guys are talking about kicking my ass right there, right? And so I just said to them, and I'm not bragging, okay? I just said to them, look, guys, at that point, I've been in the Army, in and out of the Army for 24 years. I was a police officer, and I know how to take care of myself. I don't think you want to go here. They started to approach me, and guess what? The class officer came over and told them to break it up. But I was fully prepared, and that would have happened, okay? So these things have occurred. Fight didn't occur because they broke it up. But I was totally prepared, and I can guarantee you those guys would not have fared well. Okay, and I'm not bragging. I mean, again, I was in the Army for 24 years. I was a police officer. I know about self-defense. I know how to scrap, all right? Okay, what am I talking about on the title of this video today? Admissions, but no confessions. Well, it's like I've said for a long time. There are lies of omission and lies of commission. We were promised a whole bunch of things, and the economic things, pretty much, happened initially at any rate, until it turned into this debacle over the last 8 months, 6 months. And I'm not going to make that a subject today. We all know what happened there. But as I mentioned the other night, Trump will not rescind the national emergency, even with all of the new information that we have. Well, he can't. He's banked on this. He's banked on and I don't mean he's going to get money. I'll just put it that way. Get money or his investments in any way, but it's his pride primarily. And he could have some investments on the side. I don't know. I haven't looked in it. I don't think he could hide that if he did. But the point is, his pride is involved, and he will not back off saying that he was conned or that he was complicit in this, which is what I think. So, I was very upset about that, and he keeps talking about the vaccines. Of course, he funded Gavi. I've had people confront me and I say, no, he didn't. That's not true. And all it takes is one search on the internet, and you can find it out. He even said it. He even did an advertisement for Gavi. Can you believe that? Yes, he did. So all of these things were happening, and I was just really, really upset to see that there are these admissions that are coming through not because they are making confessions, but because the truth will come out and they still will not act on it. Primarily President Trump and the leaders of the Western nations, primarily all this is happening, of course, in India and other places, and the governors and mayors. So what is their end game? And I think most of us know that. I think a lot of people have forgotten that the governors were all called to a meeting by Pence, I believe it was, back about a year ago. Do you all remember this? They met, I think, in St. Louis, if I'm not mistaken. It was somewhere in the Midwest. Does anybody remember where those governors met? And everybody was wondering what they were meeting there for. And then you look at things now and you see they're all on the same sheet of music, some more, some less. I mean, you have them really bad like Newsom in California, and like Inslee in Washington, and like Cuomo in New York. But then all the others, including Republican governors and mayors, are still on this kick to some extent. Even the governor of South Dakota, as open and as liberty loving and governing as she is, and she's pretty much left it to her people. So that's probably the place where it's the least pushed. But they met, and I think they were told what was coming. I think they may not have been told exactly what it was, but they were probably threatened that if they did not get in line, that some very bad things would happen to them or their families. Remember how secretive that was? I think that's exactly what it was. And then, of course, Trump signed the influenza vaccination executive order in September of last year. And then, of course, the whole thing rolled out from there. So they knew what was coming, and it was planned, and it's deliberate. It's no matter how you look at it. So what I'm saying is that our governments are warring against us, and I've said that for a long time. The people never really had control of their governments, but what control they had, they've lost it. And I put out in the last few days some other information, I'm sure most of you are aware of it, about this reset that they're doing. Millions of people are going to starve to death rather quickly. And if they start a war, billions are going to perish. We are going to go into some type, we already have, into a hot kinetic conflict here in the United States between ideologies. And that's a shame, because the people that orchestrated this are the ones that the people should go after. I'm just going to say it that way. And that gentleman, Mr. Zapata, that Alex Jones had on yesterday, he said it right. And I think he may have been an officer. I'm not sure. He kind of talks like he was one. Not sure. But he said it right, and he had the guts to say it. And the unfortunate thing is that, as I put out also in the last few days, by and large, the military is made up of millennials at this point whose brains have been poisoned, and they've been propagandized so much that I don't think you can count on most of them to do the right thing. I'm sorry, I've called that out for a long time, and certainly not the brass. There are exceptions, but will they be allowed to have access to weapons systems and command and control when this thing kicks off? I think they're already identified. The good guys, I mean. So more than likely, they will not be permitted. They will either be relieved of duty or watched very closely. I wouldn't count too much on the military being on your side. And then, of course, there's the question of the Chinese troops and intelligence agents that are already here and have been here for a long time, and the weapons shipments that we've talked about, the Customs Border Patrol finding, and the missiles and the missile silos, et cetera, that Nancy Morgan Hart has pointed out from the Pelican situation in Florida and across the country, and then the recent French missile that was found in Florida that was, in fact, armed, live and armed. So they're ready, okay? And I think that the governors and these people have told that they have no chance, and so they're trying to save their own skin, so they'll do whatever they're told. So what am I saying? I'm saying that they're not going to confess their sins. Like Greg Abbott, he's pressing forward. The only one that has really that I've seen is Governor DeSantis of Florida. I wish he would just take it to the next level and just start speaking out even more. But he's probably, he's still in that sensitive situation where he's got to play politics. Well, politics is going to get everybody killed. So I would call on Governor DeSantis, if he was in that meeting in St. Louis, to come clean. Maybe he's repented. I wish President Trump would, but I am not. I was holding out that he would repent. I've been calling him out to repent for a long time. He's not going to. Okay, it's not going to happen. I see these Q people and others saying, "Oh, he's letting them expose themselves." That old mantra again, right? No. You don't bring Goring into your war room. Eisenhower doesn't bring Goring into his war room. Keep your enemies your friends close and your enemies closer. That there's a point at which that has a diminishing return to it, and it's a serious one. That's not what's happening. No, as I've said, this is a chance for the elites to fight amongst each other for the power, because they're evil people. They're all fighting for the number one position. I think that's obvious. But that doesn't make Trump a good guy fighting them. He's just looking to get his piece of the pie, if not the whole thing. So they've used all of this consternation and opposition amongst them to make a big show, as I've said, to make Trump look like a poor, suffering servant, picked on and all that, so that no matter what he does, we will stand up for him, because we're a cult of personality. We're not into principle. Sorry, we're just not. And this latest thing, I see a lot of people that are objecting to the CDC's numbers that have come out and shown that this thing is all baloney, by and large, or at least being hyped up. I mean, we have more TB people dying from TB than we've had die from COVID, right? Of course, and other diseases. So we're in a position where these folks are not going to back down. And Trump is pushing forward with the vaccines, as you know. I'm not going to go over that again. It's just obvious. And the CDC numbers, he's not acting on that. He's not going to rescind his national emergency because of pride and because he's involved. It's blatantly obvious to anybody who's willing to call it out. And I'm very disturbed, as I've said on several live streams now. Hi, Nancy, nice to see you. On several live streams now that those who have the ability to get to him and who have access aren't pushing him. At least, we don't see it. I mean, if it was having any effect, I think we would be seeing some changes. And these people are saying, "Oh, he's not going to mandate the vaccine. He's talking about other therapeutics and other medicines." He's pushing millions of doses of this stuff. Okay? And I had another person say, "Well, Trump's already said that he's not going to go along with the international vaccination thing. He's said the U.S. isn't going to do that." That's a cover, because he wants. Don't you understand what this guy's doing? He knows that every country is developing their own vaccine. Gates has his hands in it in some way, or shape, or form, as well as Fauci and others, but he already knows that every country is doing their own. So, yeah, more excuses. That's right, Nancy. So he can say, "Well, we're not doing what the internationals are doing. We're doing our own thing." It's the same thing, okay? It's the same thing. So everybody's making excuses for him, including these people that I say have this ability to at least say something, and they're not. I don't know where Rand Paul's on this. Rand Paul ought to be yelling and screaming. But he's been hurt so bad. He's been attacked, 3 times now, minimum? Almost shot there at the ballpark when Representative Scalise was shot. The guy that beat him up in his yard and caused him to lose half a lung, and he broke a bunch of ribs and all that. And then the attack on him by Antifa and BLM in D.C. as he's leaving the RNC from the White House, of all places. And there's a problem with that, too. So, I don't look at him as a powerful man. I think he has principle, but and he'll stand up to a certain point, but I don't see him be the type of leader that is really needed to stand up and say no. Maybe he feels like he has some influence there, but he really needs to step up and do something, or realize that he can't do it and just go back to doctoring, is my feeling. But yeah, then people say, well, if he gives up a seat, a Democrat might get in there. Well, what difference does it make, right? I mean, in the end run. So that's what I'm talking about as far as admissions and confessions. There are passive admissions, but no confessions. We cannot trust these people. They're all in on it, and that's what that meeting was about, I am certain, a year ago. People are starting to get up around here, so if you hear some background noise, please forgive it. How was your day?
Okay.
Good. Some people work at night. I used to, a lot. Okay, and I don't have any notes this morning. I was going to set up the camera and stuff. I do bring my small studio with me when I travel, but I just decided not to do that again today. You'll notice the lighting's not real good because I didn't want to set up a light. All right. I wanted to talk about also my live stream last night. I was out for a walk, and I had a good signal, but they must have heard my. I don't know what happened. It's very suspect. But I decided to do. I was pointing the camera from my phone at the blacktop, and there was a reason for that. It was a symbol that we're in a situation where we have very little light. Okay, we have very little light on anything, the truth or anything right now. Everything's going black. It was kind of a symbol, and so I started out the video that way, and I actually said, I'm looking at this blacktop as a symbol that we're in darkness right now, and there's very little light. And then I started talking about the situation with Trump going forward with the vaccines, okay, and what the CDC said. And then you caught it about halfway. Actually, it came back on finally. By the way, I only had one notification that it wasn't uploading, and it was short. It was maybe 10 seconds or something. But apparently, the whole first half of it, I was shown that it was uploading, and it wasn't the live stream. So, but it finally kicked in after I got off the introduction of about a minute and a half or so, and then it went ahead and did the rest of it that you heard. So I won't rehash that as well, but I wanted to make sure that you knew what was going on. Okay. Again, I want to apologize. I've said it before. I have a lot of patience, but when I'm finally... No, I don't think he had a mini stroke, and even if he did, it won't make any difference. I mean, what difference does it make? He's not calling the shots anyway. It's not him. Or if it is, he's a real demon, a real evil guy who will trade your principles and your liberty for a bowl of porridge. Exactly what I've said before. Okay, so it doesn't matter. And if he dies in office, or if he's incapacitated in office, it's like I said a long time ago. All the things that he's done that people can say have been good, if he didn't stand by principle and take out the traitors, the insurrectionists inside the intelligence agencies and in his government, everything he did would be changed the day he leaves. So he'd have been totally ineffective anyway. All right? Yahweh is returning. I wasn't going to bring this up, but since Orion did, I'm going to talk about that. I've often told you, and I'm not going to do a sermon this morning, but I think this is important. I've often told you that the scriptures are used as a playbook by both the good and the bad side. A lot of you aren't going to like what I'm going to say here. We hear how bad. I'm just giving you another perspective, okay? That's all I'm doing here. Like, emergency exit, you're not going to like this. You're not going to like this one. The Sumerian writings and all those aren't entirely without foundation. They were used by the Hebrews to build some of their stories. I'm not saying that they were lying or anything, but it's the method of the ancients, okay? They adopted other people's ideas just like the Romans did and put them into their culture. I've often told you that at the same time Moses was taking the children of Israel out of Egypt, Homer was writing his Iliad and the Odyssey, which was nothing more than an explanation of the awakening of the consciousness of mankind. God uses evil to push his purposes forward. But that's not to say we're supposed to submit to it. So I'm going to start off, first of all, by saying in the Garden of Eden, in order to awaken the consciousness of mankind in his physical state, God permitted, he didn't have to let him, he could have interfered. God permitted the evil one and his fallen angels to descend and taunt and promise knowledge, kind of like what we're seeing today. You know, if you get the chip, you'll have all this knowledge. And you'll be like God. I think they could have gotten it another way, of course, but that's how God let it happen. I think they would have been better off if they had refused, and then God would have said, I think, in my own personal opinion, you refused the tempter, but I'm going to give you a lot of what I know anyway. At least get you going down that road. But it was who they followed and how they were going to get it that was the problem. In other words, substituting the evil one for God. Not loving the Lord thy God with all thy heart, might, mind, and strength. They would have gotten the knowledge anyway. See, Jesus showed how to do it. He was taken to the high mountain, and Satan said, if you just bow down and worship me, see my point? I'll give you all of this. Well, God was going to give it to him anyway. Do you see what I'm saying? It's how you get it that matters, not that you get it. So, we have that situation in the Garden of Eden. We have the writings of Sumer that talk about a lot of these same things. And then we have the situation, and I think this is where I really want to go with this. What happened at the flood? Do you think God really did that? That's the way it's presented in the Bible. And I could speculate as to why. But I have a nasty suspicion, and this is where people aren't going to like what I say. I have a nasty suspicion that, not that the world wasn't evil, because it was, just like it is now. But who really caused the destruction? And I know people are saying, well, that's just a metaphor, it's just a fairy tale. My point is this. Who has started the wars? Who has destroyed life on this earth? The same people that are in control now of your governments and the hidden forces, the secret societies that we've been warned about for thousands of years. So what if the destruction at the deluge was really about evil people who had control of the science and saw that the people had submitted to their lies, their deceits, and the evil that they presented to them. In other words, the evil people gave the people this stuff, this evil stuff, and the people submitted themselves to it. They took it upon themselves. So they did become evil. And they brought about their own destruction that way. And the evil people felt justified in reducing the population of the earth because everybody was going along with the bad program anyway. So let's destroy the earth and save it for ourselves. Does that sound familiar with the way the elites are talking today? Save Mother Earth for themselves, destroy everything else because we're a virus? Are we at the same point of accepting the evil that they have presented to us? Are we at the point where we have brought so much of that into our souls that they can justify doing the same thing they did, what, 5,000 years ago, according to the timetables? So what's the only way out? The only way out is to do the best you can to get out of the way. To take part in this war that's coming other than self-defense. And I'm not trying to stop anybody from doing good things to try to go after the bad people. I'm not saying that. But as Alex Jones said rightly yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I'm not sure. I listen to his, as I'm driving, I'll sometimes listen to some of the things he said. People don't like that because they say, Jones, he's not the only one to listen to. I've told you, I listen to David Knight, obviously Nancy Morgan Hart, Mark Pantano. But Alex is right about a lot of things that he says. Whether or not he's controlled opposition doesn't matter. It's the information I'm looking for. And then I bounce it off of other things. So he said, all these people are planning on fighting Antifa and BLM. You're really going after the wrong folks. You're going to waste your time on the drones that they're just using. Like I've talked about the Bulgarians coming through the Fulda Gap when the Soviet army was using them as cannon fodder to identify the positions, dispositions, and intents of the enemy, strengths and weaknesses. Get yourself decisively engaged other than defense with the BLM and Antifa. First of all, the governors and the mayors and the district attorneys are going to come after you, and then you're not going to be of use to anybody. Okay? Don't get drawn into that. And remember, your real enemies are the elites, who, as Alex Jones has pointed out, some of their own security teams will turn against them at the right moment. That's why they put in this entire security grid. They know that eventually they'll be identified. The scriptures say that. People will look on this man and say, this is the man who destroyed nations? This piece of garbage, this little weakling caused all this trouble? That can be one person, like Soros. Or it could be a metaphor for all of those who are trying to do the same thing. Your real enemy is your own fork? I don't think you meant to say that. I'm not gonna take any of these slams personally today. I blew up enough last night, or the night before last. So they're doing it again, folks. They're justifying destroying you because you're, by and large, so many in the population are giving in to the Netflix shows, the war games on television, the video games, the transgenderism, the cross-dressers going to these, what do they call them, the dress up as women and they go to the schools, the whole thing, all right? Our society is sick, and they can justify killing us because of that. So you have to not partake, and you have to get out. Now, I think we're quickly coming to the point here where your chance to exit and find a safe haven is closing. And I've heard other people talk about this, and I could name a lot of people, and you know who they are, that have said that if you're not ready now, you're probably not going to be able to. If you're in a big city now, if you haven't got a place already that you can flee to, you probably won't get one, not in time. Make all haste. You have, if you're going to give yourself, if you're going to say you're going to vote for Trump because you want to slow the process down, all right. But by the same token, you better take note and take action to slow the attack on you down. All right. If you have the means. A lot of people don't, a lot of people don't have the means, but you've got to do something because it's at the door. I give it 3 weeks before some serious things happen. Monograph says some serious things are going to happen by the 11th of September. And as you know, if you don't know, Antifa and BLM have called out for a big, huge thing starting September 5th. It's going to go through November 5th. You know about that, right? This is going to get bad. Real bad, real fast. And you have to take the proper precautions. The operational sequencing of Nancy Pelosi, you see what she's saying. Geez, I'm going to be, Nancy Morgan Hart put it out yesterday, right? I think it was yesterday. Gee, Nancy Pelosi is going to be the acting president. Now, there are other possibilities, but she's looking at that. Don't think she isn't. That lunatic who's 80-something years old, who can't keep, well, anyway, I won't get nasty. They're going to go down this road, whether or not Trump wins the election. Whether you think he's your savior, which he isn't, it's done. His job was to keep us underfoot with hope until they could get their agenda totally going. And we're there. Okay. So I've been going for a little over half an hour, and I didn't want to do much more. And like I said, I'm not going to go through the chat today. I don't need to get myself upset. I already kind of commented on a couple, and I shouldn't have. I don't look for a fight, but as you can see, when someone presents me with one and they don't back off, I can get pretty animated. All right. It's called righteous indignation. Oh, well, you shouldn't cuss, Roy. Yeah, well, as I wrote to somebody yesterday, they were on Twitter and they were talking about, the word that rhymes with truck, duck. I just can't help this person. I just can't help myself. Nothing else works, and it's true. And I think I wrote him and I said, I didn't cuss. I did. I wrote him back and I said, I didn't cuss until I was 27, 28 years old. And my mom wouldn't stand for it. Oh, you say a 4-letter word? Oh, I never did, even around my friends. Even if I wasn't home, because I didn't want to get into a habit and slip. And at any rate, so I didn't. And then I go in the Army, and I've kind of told this story before. And as a military police officer, people don't mess with you. Okay, they don't pull your chain because they know. Basically, when a military police officer is around, there's a lot of power there, even amongst just a second lieutenant. A lot of power in an MP officer. And when he's the MP duty officer, he has the authority of the commanding general of the installation. That's how powerful a military police duty officer is. Kind of like a chief of police kind of person. So in the Army, a lot of cussing was going on around me, but I didn't engage in it. I tried to be an officer and a gentleman, because Congress said I was, right? And so I didn't have to resort to that. People knew when I walked in that the game was over. I could tell you a lot of stories, but I'm going to save all those stories for when I get my police officer friend on a nightcap sometime in October, I'm hoping. Not that he knows all those things that, Bar soap. Well, it was worse than that, and I won't tell you what it was, but he didn't know much about my military background, but he knows enough. For instance, when people were saying, Roy's not in the Army, he doesn't have a top secret clearance and all that, and he'd say, hey, I had the Defense Intelligence Agency people come to me to do his background check. No, he's for real. Plus, he knew that Murray Police hired me right from the Army. Anyway, so that's just where it is, okay? All right. I probably got off course there. I'll just say thanks everybody for coming this morning, and as far as my cussing and all that, I feel bad about it, but when I became the police officer, when I got onto Murray, I realized I couldn't be a gentleman with criminals and suspects. I couldn't in the military either, but it was just a different situation. And if I didn't use 4-letter words, they didn't think I was serious. And then, of course, I got used to it. Michael Friend, thank you for being cognizant of Edelson James. Thank you. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I'm going to let you go. I'm kind of in a situation now where it's between. I signed up for a second class. I really learned a lot of good stuff that I needed to know. So I'm going to get back into class. I forget when it starts again. It's not too long from now, maybe another week or two, something like that. But I'm going to stay on the road, I think, the whole time. Got people to see, places to go, and I got to use the opportunity as it's available at this point. So it'll be a while before we get back into a formal studio. Emergency exit. We aren't going to talk about that. It's legitimate class, okay? I'm learning. I'll just put it to you this way. When I was in college and I took physics and all that stuff, chemistry and all that, electronics, that kind of thing. We're back into that type of stuff now. History has been my big deal, military science, things like that, law, but I need to learn some technical stuff, and not so I can make money, but so that during this crisis that's coming up, I'll have some basic tools of how to make sure that we still have some of the technology advances that mankind has had. To still, say, have lights on, things like that, obtain, be able to build things that can keep us informed and fed and watered. I'll just put it that way, okay? All right. Keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears to the ground. Yes, we need to take action, but you can't get decisively engaged with the probes that they're sending out with Antifa and BLM. They're the enemy, just like Nazi soldiers were. It was Hitler we should go after, not just the Nazi soldiers, right? Most of them they're just taking advantage of the pay and being able to be nasty with a large group of people. They're criminals, there's no doubt about it, and you need to defend yourselves against them, but they're not the guys you need to get decisively engaged with. Don't. That's a diversion. It's a destructive one, no doubt. That's why I say stay defensive, okay? No, they weren't survival classes. No, Rosalie Davis, no. No, no, that's not like survival. Not at all, as a matter of fact. No. Technology, because that's my weak area. That and finance. I was never a finance, which is why I don't talk much about, the details of the financial reset and all that, because I really don't get it. I sent out some things the other day on Twitter with the guy who was the millionaire dad or whatever his name is, that wrote a book a few years ago, and he's been talking about the reset coming, and he talks about gold and silver and that, but he mentions Bitcoin. I'm very concerned about that because, as Monograph has pointed out, it's most likely that Bitcoin was actually promoted by the Federal Reserve. Maybe he doesn't know that, this guy, but I think that Monograph's exactly right on that. Because now they're I'm wondering what Christopher Green's doing. He probably thought he didn't have to pay taxes on all that, and they probably come after him for back taxes. I don't know that, but it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, the Fed digital dollar. Bitcoin may very well have been a trial run to see how that'll work. Yeah. So I don't talk much about finances. I can tell when, like when Trump signed that $6 trillion stimulus, that's where he wanted to go with that. He wants to bankrupt the country because that's his job. Bankrupt us both financially and morally and principally, despite what he says. Despite what he says. It's what he does that you have to pay attention to. Okay. I'm out of here. See you in a day or so, or if something big happens, I'll come back on, okay? Thanks for your patience with me. Thank you for indulging me. Thank you for understanding that. I mean, if you saw your family getting assaulted by criminals and the police would not let you defend yourselves, you'd get very, very angry. And that's where we are. They're assaulting us, people in government, criminals, BLM, the whole thing. They're all assaulting good people. And I consider them my family. What did Jesus say when they came to the door? And I've told you about that before. He's talking to a group of people inside of a house. And his family comes and knocks on the door, and the guy goes and answers it, and he sees that it's Jesus' family. And so he comes over to Jesus and he says, hey, your family's at the door. And what did he say? Anybody know what he said? I'll give you a second to answer. What did he say? Let's see if anybody, the chat might be a little slow. What family? Okay, now he said, my family. Who is my mother and my brother and my sister? Those who do the will of my Father in heaven. You people here. Now, he wasn't slamming his family. He was using it as a teaching point. That who we're really related to are those who are of similar mind and spirit and heart. Think about that. So that's why I get upset, because they're attacking those that have the same mind, spirit, and heart than I do. And I want to defend them, but I can't defend everybody. Physically or any other way. I'm just one guy, as Monograph says. I'm a nobody, and I'm just a little nobody with no influence. But I do still get angry. Of course, then there's a saying, and I forget exactly how it goes, but thank God for showing the difference between what you can change and what you can't, and knowing the difference. I fail in that regard sometimes. Okay. Y'all take care. God bless you. God bless yours, and we'll talk to you soon.